What's up, guys? Welcome back to Babe and the Braids podcast. I'm Allison the Babe.
And I'm Isaac the Braids. And ponytail and afro and occasionally braided. I do it all.
All right, Isaac, we get it. But transitioning into a more serious tone, we have a very, very important topic to talk about today. Honestly, probably the most important topic we will ever talk about on this podcast.
Well, I guess we've talked about race, but in the wake of George Floyd's death, which if you haven't heard about it, I can't believe that almost because
I think it would be very surprising to hear somebody that hasn't heard about George Floyd.
And if you randomly haven't, George Floyd was brutally murdered by a police officer. This dude had his knee on George Floyd's neck for 8.5 minutes. If you've participated in protests like we have, we actually laid on the street for 8.5 minutes. And it's just this dude, I just can't believe that George Floyd was murdered this way. And that this is not an uncommon thing, it feels like, that police officers are doing.
Yeah, I mean, police brutality isn't like a one and done situation. This is something that happens all the time. And I think, honestly, it was just because this was recorded and went viral on Instagram and social media. Yeah, I think this is the only reason people are outraged. And what I think is people don't really understand that racism happens every single day. Isaac is not even fully black and he experiences racism.
I'm definitely perceived as black and I claim being black. I think what people don't realize more than anything is black people were allowed to vote in 1965. It might be 1964, but I'm pretty sure it's 65. For the first time, that's when it was legalized. As an example, Trump was in his teenage years when black people could not vote. And what I'm trying to say is that's how close we are to times where black people are that oppressed. So it is police brutality, but it's also just life. It's just every day. It's the way the system is ran. People use the term systematic racism. It's very real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I could just keep going because I was a political science major in college, and one of my favorite classes talked about Chicago. It talked about basically Chicago politics, and we broke down how race and politics go together. And there's just so many things in the system that oppress black people.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are looking at the George Floyd situation as an isolated situation, and people are protesting that those guys should be in jail, which fortunately they are now in jail, but it's so much bigger than that. And that's something, I can't speak for the black community, but I would go to say that everybody is fighting for other people to realize that this is not just one situation, that this is so much bigger than that.
I think it's crazy because I think what it started off as is that police need to be held accountable for their absurd actions, like killing a black dude who is pretty much doing nothing wrong. So that's one, but I think it's transitioned more into a place where it's hey, let's have these more difficult conversations. Let's deal with issues like Drew Brees just being ignorant to what's going on in America and deal with situations like that. So it's been kind of an interesting, the way it's played out. It's been really interesting because now it's more of a racial conversation.
Mm-hmm. And that is a topic for today. We are talking about the Black Lives Matter movement and the whole, I guess just what's going on in the world right now. And the reason we want to talk about that on the podcast is not only because we are an interracial couple and my boyfriend is perceived as black. I want to say perceived as black because he is half white. His mom is white and his dad is black. But if he was walking down the street, someone would say he is black. So I'm just going to put that out there.
Or if I got pulled over.
Exactly. So we want to talk about this topic not only because we're interracial and he is perceived as black, but also because we have a platform, that platform being this podcast, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and
TikTok.
We want to use our platforms to talk about these very important conversations. And they're uncomfortable for some people. For me, it's not really uncomfortable because Isaac and I talk about race very, very often. And I think it's interesting to hear about this topic because I am white and I do have white privilege, whereas Isaac is perceived as black and he doesn't have white privilege. So I think it's very interesting to talk about. I actually put up a post and asked if you guys had any questions because I think it's I don't know, it's great to hear from two different perspectives, and I am able to ask Isaac certain things and he's able to ask me certain things, and I just feel like it's a really healthy conversation, and we can show you guys our conversation, and hopefully it can be educational and you guys can learn something you didn't know, and just like bring awareness. Let
me ask you this, Al, and I just thought of this. Do you feel like you didn't think about race before like you do now? Like, Allie's pretty active in everything that's going on. Initially, I would argue that she was more active than I was. And would you have done that, do you think, 6 years ago? Yeah. Or do you think knowing that your kids might be, I mean, depending on how light-skinned these little nuggets are, do you think that knowing you'll have, potentially have,
okay, Isaac.
Knowing that you'll have black kids, do you think that changes the way you approach this? It has to.
I mean...
And we've not talked about this.
Yes, but no. I think, like, if you and I were not dating at this point in time, I think I would still be going to protest. I think I would still be doing everything that I'm doing now. I just wouldn't be going to sleeping next to a mixed guy.
Allie, I've told you once and I'll tell you again, when you describe me, you need to use more adjectives.
Okay.
Mixed. Beautiful. Voluptuous. I don't even know what that word means. But yeah, either way, it's just I always.
But I will say, my parents raised me that everybody should be treated equally, no matter who you love, no matter what you identify as, no matter what color you are. You should be treated equally. So I would argue that yes, I would be doing the same exact thing now, and I think the only difference from not dating you and dating you is I just feel like I have more of a responsibility to be speaking out and having a platform because people are actually looking to me because I'm dating you. And I think sometimes when white or people who are perceived as white speak up on this topic, I think sometimes it can be swept under the rug because nobody really understands, like that white person will not understand any of the oppression and struggles that black people go through. But I've seen it firsthand. Like I see it, like
you're in there.
Yeah. So I think I have more of a responsibility now. And of course, like knowing that my kids will, I mean, we don't know how dark they're going to be, but I just think I have more of a responsibility to be an advocate.
I think so. I think what she said that was most interesting is she said, basically like my parents raised me to not see color. And I think...
No, wait, hold on. I didn't say that. My parents did raise me to see color, but my parents raised me to respect the color. Like I respect black culture, but I do not see someone who is black and say, oh, they don't have, like, they should not have the same rights as me. In fact, like, I think their culture should be, like, as valued as our culture is, if not more.
Well, I just think, like, that it's not a problem that somebody was raised to not see color, but I think, like...
Don't say not see color. That's, like, very controversial.
Well, I'm just... Or to treat everybody equally, it's not a problem. But, like, black people being raised, like, you don't have a choice but to, like, deal with serious racial questions. Mm-hmm. Like, a black person couldn't just be raised, given, like, in America and just be like, all races are equal. I love every race. It's like, no, like, we are literally not treated equal. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of an issue that's come up, too, now is, like, the idea of white privilege and how that plays into white people making comments like, I was just raised to, you know, treat everybody equal and like that.
Whereas you were raised knowing that, like, if you got pulled over, you have to have your hands on the wheel. And I mean, yes. But moving forward, like, I think, I mean, if I can be an advocate for Black Lives Matter.
Or an ally.
If I can be an ally. Yeah, you're right.
Ally the ally.
No, but I think it's even more important that white women know to raise their babies, like addressing these conversations. I think it's like everybody needs to be having these conversations because like I saw a post on Twitter, Instagram, and it was like, don't tell me that your kid is too young to talk about race because I have to tell my kid to be careful in certain situations. So don't say it's an age thing. Like, everybody should be having these conversations.
That's super true. One of the craziest things for me is going to this we went to a protest in Newport Beach, and for those of you who live in Orange County, who have been to Orange County, specifically Newport, there's no black people. And there were no black people at this protest.
I think I saw it was you and a mixed girl and her parents, and then one black man.
And a black girl, was running the protest, and there was probably 2,000 people. Mm-hmm. But the point I'm trying to make is, the thing that was most moving for me is seeing, white children holding up signs. Like, I have never seen that before. And I think I struggle with always assuming white people have some type of racism in them, or racist like vibe. Like when Allie goes, "Oh, I was raised to think all races are equal." Like, in my mind, when I hear white people say that, and this is a problem with me, I just kind of think like there's literally no way. And that goes to show like the structure that America has given us. Mm-hmm. But the point is, the thing that was most moving is these whole families with little kids screaming Black Lives Matter. If that would have happened in Georgia when I was in elementary school, think about how empowering that is to black little kids. Like, your life matters. You can do whatever you want. You're a beast. Like, it's really empowering. I mean, I can go on a rant about it, but like, think about when I was a little kid, when I was 10 years old. There had never even been a black president. Like, when they started presidency, black people were enslaved. And like, now there's little white kids yelling Black Lives Matter. That we've had a quote unquote black president as he's perceived. Like, it's just crazy. I mean, it really is crazy.
I mean, I like hearing your perspective on, I think Isaac and I have had like discussions surrounding race in our relationship, but I don't think we've ever like really dove deep. So for me, like, that is very eye-opening hearing that, like, if you saw that as a young black kid,
it would have been empowering.
Yeah. Like, you would have, well, I'm not going to say how you would have felt, but going back to what you said about, what were you saying? Like,
the image, I'm just thinking back. Like, this lady just sent me a text. And because she's seeing everything that Local Human's doing. You guys can look up Local Human. And she was like, my heart hurts for you. And she goes, one of the first experiences I had with you is when you came on a trip with our family, their white family. And I was in like middle school, and she said like the front office or the front desk of this hotel was calling, like making complaints like, hey, there's somebody who's not staying here running around the hotel. Like, also, I just think back to going on trips, another trip with another white family, and we were getting gas one time and there was KKK signs up, like, for meetings. And it's just, that's why it was just crazy to me to go to these Newport protests and be like, it's so different. Kids my age, or who would have been my age at the time, are holding up Black Lives Matter signs. That is insane.
And going back to what you said about, like, automatically in your head you perceive like white people in Newport Beach as like being a little bit racist. That's not a problem in you. That's a problem in society. Like, that is not your fault. In fact, like, that is just years and years of like racism and like racial encounters that you've had, and that has developed like that's the way you think, and it's nobody else's fault other than society.
Yeah, I agree. That's true. We could also have a whole podcast on being mixed in America. That's like a whole nother racial podcast that we could have, but I think you're right.
And going off of that, I mean, it's crazy that I even have this thought, but like hearing you say about like going on these trips with these families, and like, one, that you weren't even at the hotel because you were a little black kid just running around the hallways, and two, like seeing KKK signs, like, you've never told me those things.
Well, the lady literally just texted me. She's so nice. And she said she called my mom crying when it happened, because she was like, I didn't realize that like this was a thing. Like, because I take this little adorable, beautiful, beast, voluptuous little mixed kid with me, now him and my kid are getting phone calls. And it's never happened before. A situation happened in the apartment complex. This lady, I get out of my car, and she goes, "Are you a resident here? What unit do you live in?" I hate to say this, but I truly believe if you were white, that wouldn't happen. And it's just.
Oh, I mean, 1,000%. Just so you guys are aware, like this is something that happened maybe 2 or 3 days ago. I put it up on my Instagram and I was talking about it. I put it up on Facebook. I was talking about it. So you guys, if you want to like see my post, go on there. But what Isaac is talking about happened a few days ago.
It's crazy.
It would not have happened if you were white. That is a matter of a fact. And some people are going to say, you can't prove that. Yes, I can. Because literally she said, oh, there's a lot of looters around here. No, that's fucking racist.
Well, here's the thing. I think this is the point.
Well, describe it for them.
So, this lady, I get out of my car. I always park in the loop.
Sorry. People are going to be like, you interrupt him.
She does. We can confirm that.
It's not a race thing, though. It's just a girlfriend-boyfriend thing. But Isaac pulled up to the loop at our apartment complex, like parking out front of our apartment like a normal day.
I always do.
Yeah, just ran some errands, was getting out of his car.
And this lady literally got out of I got out of my car. She's standing on her porch. And she goes, "Excuse me, sir, are you a resident here?" I'm like, "Yeah, what are you talking about?" She goes, "So you live here?" And I'm like, "Yes, I live here. What do you even mean?" And then she goes, "Okay, so I just want to, so you're a resident here?" And I'm like, "Yes." And then
like you didn't you missed it the first 2 times I said it?
Well, and at this point I was looking at her like she was dumb, and she kept asking, and then she goes, "Well, like, okay, so what's your unit number then?" And I'm like, "I'm not telling you my unit number." And she goes, "Well, what building do you live in?" And I'm like, "I don't need to tell you what building I'm getting mad at this point. And I'm realizing like I should probably calm down.
No, but you have every right to be mad.
But and then she goes, "Well, there's looters out. Like I need to make sure." And it just really bothered me. But
that's insinuating that because you are black, you are probably a looter, or because you are black, you probably don't live in this nice apartment complex. It's very ignorant and it's completely racist. It's racial profiling.
It is racial profiling. We also confirmed this lady has made multiple racial comments.
Well, do you want to get into
We should really put her on blast. She's unit. I'm joking. I did get her unit number, so if you need it, I'm joking. We would never do that. It's not our responsibility. She needs to deal with that on her own.
Well,
but the point that I'm trying to make is
you did tell the leasing office.
Yeah, and they deserve to know. The point that I'm trying to make is let's use her as the example. If the leasing office does nothing, as a society, we are allowing people to do stuff like that and racial profile.
1,000%.
When George Floyd is brutally murdered and Ahmaud by some random white dudes in Georgia who just want to hunt black people, and there's countless examples. Like, as a society, we have to do a better job of holding these people accountable. And that's one piece, and the other piece is it starts in the hearts and homes. And I really do believe it. I think it's both sides, but it's just ridiculous.
It's so, I'm going to try and refrain from using the F word, but it is so frustrating that there is literally video footage of white men chasing after a black man while he is on a jog and then shooting him. And those men did not go to jail that day. Those men were just running free for a while. So it really pisses me off because if somebody had a video of a black man shooting a white man when he was on a jog, that man would be thrown into jail, if not killed, by the police when he was getting arrested.
I have a couple pet peeves with this. So on one side, I have a pet peeve that is when people go, well, we just need to have more information. Like, and Allie brought up a good point. If there's a video, right, like what more info do you need? Like, I feel like people use that as a crutch to justify like racist ideologies. Like, oh, if a black man got killed by a police officer, he must have just been like, he must have had a gun or something. Like, we need more information. Mm-hmm. No, or these cops are just absurd. So it's just ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. It's just really annoying that people say that. Oh, and I was trying to think of the other thing. And the other thing is, people.
I love it. I love it. You put an emphasis. And the other thing,
because I was extending. Like, wait, what was my other point? The other thing that's frustrating is a lot of people on the Black Lives Matter side, and this pet peeve is with Black Lives Matter. A lot of people say these officers should have been arrested immediately. There's video footage, just like Allie said, they should have been arrested immediately and tried immediately like anybody else was. I agree, but we as a society, we're telling police officers, we trust you. We trust you to a higher degree that we trust than we trust another person. Knowing that, they should be held to a way higher standard. They shouldn't go through our system and fall under the category of first, second, or third degree murder. It should be like fourth degree murder. That is, we trusted you and you betrayed us. Like, that is treason. If you do an act of treason against the government, like, you're done. And why do we not hold police officers to the same regard? Like, that's treason. If we give you a gun, like,
to protect the community, and instead you kill someone who, I mean, I'm not sure if he committed the crime or not, but he did not have a weapon and he was not resisting. I mean, literally he passed out and you still were on his neck for 2 minutes.
Well, let's talk about my man who passed away in New York for selling cigarettes. Yeah, he's wrong, but that's not a death sentence. The point is the same people that we're calling to protect us are killing us.
The most frustrating part for me, well, I mean, I'm not even going to say the most. There are so many frustrating parts for me. And I'm not taking on this frustration only because I'm dating Isaac. I am taking on this frustration because this is bullshit. This is honestly crazy that we are still dealing with this shit today. That somebody would ever look at Isaac or somebody who was black and ever think that they are less than just because of their skin color. Well, that is so frustrating.
So this is me disagreeing with Allie right now.
Really?
Because I don't think it is crazy. And this is what I think people need to realize. Is it crazy that 60 years ago, black people couldn't even vote and now we're still dealing with racism? Is it crazy that our president is tweeting crazy stuff about like underlying racially driven comments when he was a teenager, black people couldn't vote and his father's hotels literally had like help, like basically indentured servants? It's not crazy. And I think if people stop saying like, oh, it's 2020, we should be over this, we might get to a better spot. What if people said, listen, black people couldn't even vote 60 years ago. We need to progress way faster because we're still in the same place we are. And so I mean,
wow. Yeah, you are honestly so right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. And like people literally, and this is what the example that I always give. My grandma was born in the 1930s. I don't know the exact year. She, like, when she was like 10 years old, like, black people were irrelevant in society. And then think about this. Her parents were slaves. So like the people raising her were slaves. And then, so she's got that raising her. And then she was kind of nothing in society. And so she's still alive now. So it's just like, we're still so connected to racism. Same goes for a white family. Like a white kid our age, his grandparents didn't see black people as anything. His great grandparents could have been slave owners. Like, how close are we to slavery? Not that far from it.
Well, and like, yeah, like very well said, Isaac. I will.
I mean, I could keep going on.
What I think is extremely important, and like I'm going to bring this back to George Floyd, police brutality. Like, we need to do a better job as a community, it's not just America though, it's worldly. Like, we all need to do a better job to fight for bills, to fight for like ways we can like establish a better police system. Like, we need to fight for that so we can progress quickly.
So what are the options though? I feel like you have two options. You either hold police officers to a higher standard, or you change the way that police officers become police. Like,
can't you do both?
You can, but what I'm saying is I think if you change the way that police officers become police, you're not going to have to hold them to a higher standard. You're not having to.
True.
It's, I mean, the pilot example is such a good example. Like, pilots don't crash planes. Pilots don't show up to work drunk.
You have to go to cosmetology school longer than you do to become a police officer. Does anybody else not see a problem with that? Like, lawyers go to school for so long just to defend somebody, but then to enforce the law, you only have to go for 6 months.
Enforce the law is like, that's one piece.
And if we're giving you a gun,
to
shoot, you like, why is it so short, and why are we giving so much money to fund these police officers?
I mean, have you ever thought about a gun? I always tell people this too. Have you ever thought about a handgun? A handgun has no other purpose other than to, like, for somebody to defend themselves and kill somebody. Mm-hmm. We're giving these people a weapon with that weapon's only intention to kill somebody. And, like,
it's not just to injure.
Like, they're not even getting the proper training. That's why, and I'll be transparent. Allie and I disagree on this. That's why I kind of think that my one disagreement with the Black Lives Matter movement is I don't think we should defund police.
I totally disagree.
I think that, like, being a police officer should be, like, you should be in the top % of human beings. And I think, like, in order to vet every human and vet people that want to become police officers and train them properly, that we should raise the salary and maybe have fewer.
Well, but that would be defunding. If you raise the salary and have fewer and make the training more grueling to the point where people who just like, oh, I'm just gonna become a police officer. Like, I didn't get accepted. I'm just gonna become a police officer. Not saying that's like all police officers just like use it as a like plan B, but I would say that is defunding police officers. And I don't like.
Well, and you could. I would make an argument that you could defund certain areas of the country. We don't listen. We're talking like we know everything. Like,
to be honest, I think you and I could both educate ourselves better on the like funding of police officers before we even speak out on this topic. And I would say that I don't think I'm fully educated on that to the point where I would want to talk to our listeners and like speak on that. So I think we should. Yeah, because I just don't think I've read enough. I don't think I'm like that well educated, and I can admit that, and I think I should become more educated on it. But I think we should move on from like defunding the police, because honestly, at the end of the day, like George Floyd was not even killed from a gun. He was literally killed by asphyxiation. Why can I not say that? He was killed he was literally suffocated. Like, oxygen was not getting to his brain. So it's crazy because guns do so much violence, but how about we talk about white racist men that also can do as much violence as a gun? Like, how toxic is it for men? Like, I'm not going to say white men, like, and just say every white male is racist, because I don't believe that. But we need to do a better job as a country and how police officers become police and like the training, because there have been multiple allegations against so many officers and they are still roaming the streets today. Like, if there have been racial encounters where they have been a little bit too aggressive, they need to go through some intense training, or they need to be kicked the fuck off the force, because they are going to be racist. And if there is a black man who has a gun, that man has no choice. I'm not saying that it's right for a black man to have a gun. I'm not saying it's right for a white man to have a gun. But if you look at it, like, there is literally a picture on I think it was Instagram or Facebook. I don't know. But there is a picture on social media, and it is of a white teenage male being escorted out of a high school in which he just shot up and murdered several people, and he is being escorted out in handcuffs. And then there is a picture of George Floyd on the street, unarmed. Literally, the crime he was committing wasn't even a felony, and he is killed. It's so frustrating. Like, and I know you are just as frustrated. Like, I'm not claiming to be like oppressed. I'm so aggravated because people are like, no, all lives matter. No, they fucking don't. When the Boston Marathon got bombed and like they were like, we did not say, oh, but like Michigan matters, California matters. No, fucking we're praying for Boston because they literally just had something tragic happen and we are praying for them. We are fighting for them. So why can't we do that for the Black Lives Matter community? Why is that so hard for people? Everyone's like, well, blue lives matter. Not all policemen are racist. If I'm a white man, I'm not racist. Stop being defensive and start looking into yourself and stop like defending yourself. Like, I can do a better job at educating myself, and I am dating a person of color. I think people, like white people, need to take accountability for these actions. And even if you're not the one killing, are you able to have a voice? Are you able to educate yourself better? Like, what are you doing to be better?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The whole thing is just insane. I can't, in the Black lives versus all lives versus, I'm like, I just literally can't understand it.
It's exhausting.
I can't understand it. And what I don't get more than anything is why anybody would have pushback. Like, if somebody was like, Black Lives Matter, and or let's say that someone said, well, in this case, Black Lives Matter, why would you push back? You would just go, yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe you'd be like, well, I don't really understand why they're saying that, but like, you would never disagree with it. Like, there's people who are like mad. Like, you go on downtown Huntington Beach and there's anti-protesters, people protesting against the protesters. Like, you are racist.
We honestly, Huntington Beach is probably one of the worst places to be during a time like this because Huntington Beach itself is so red.
Suspect.
And like politics wise. And what's frustrating for me, the camera's moving because our dog is moving. She's sleeping. But I think what's I just say what's frustrating for me, but what pisses me off is that people are bringing politics into this. This isn't political.
For no reason.
This is human rights. This is basic human rights. We're literally saying Black lives matter. No, Black lives are loved. Black lives are celebrated. Like, we're literally just fighting for Black lives mattering. So this is not political. Stop bringing your Trump flags to these protests. We're not saying our president, like, we're not literally going up and down the street saying, like, oh, Trump needs to stop being racist, even though he fucking does need to stop being racist. We're just saying that, like, Black lives matter. Stop bringing politics into it. Stop bringing, like, your conservatism into it. Like, stop doing that. Stop fighting for, like, police lives matter. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say like that people, like other people, their lives don't matter. I'm just sitting here saying that the Black community needs us. Like, Black lives matter. They need us right now. Why is that so hard for, like, why are we even debating on human rights?
It's actually crazy. It doesn't make any sense to me. But the reason Trump has made it this, like, Trump has made a political climate that feels like this. Like, he's made it like this. So I feel like that's kind of why.
I don't even, it, like, people are making it political. Like, Trump tweeting these, like, they have a racial,
like thug. Like, you're gonna get people that are gonna freak out when you text, or not text, tweet. He might, who knows what he's texting, but tweeting, thug, get these thug. It's like, come on, Trump.
Well, and it's crazy because if you compare the coronavirus protest to the Black Lives Matter protest and the way that people have talked about each individual protest as a whole, it's racist. Honestly, it's like these peaceful people just want their businesses open. I'm not saying that's wrong for people to want their businesses open. I don't know why I'm defending myself. I don't really give a shit. This is like, people are going to hate on this video no matter what. It's just crazy because people are like, get these thugs off the street. Okay. After years of oppression, are you really surprised that it has gone towards violence and like looting? Are you actually surprised? Because I'm pretty sure if you were scared to go outside your home and, I don't know, take a jog and like be afraid, would you not be so mad? Would you not be so angry and want to do that? Because I know I would. Like, I know, like, well, I need like anger management, but
yeah.
I just, okay, what? I just would, I'm sorry, but like, I don't apologize. I think this is absolutely necessary. And I think that all of these like acts, like these criminal acts, I'm not saying it's like, this is amazing. I'm so proud of them. Like, what I do say is like, they got your attention. And I think we as white people, I'm sorry, I think I'm just like ranting. As white people, we cannot tell the Black community how to not be oppressed. It's just crazy. We cannot do that.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, I feel like everything that's happened has made the whole world stop and really evaluate. And I think that's good. I mean, by any means necessary. Mm-hmm. Like Allie said, what do you expect people to do?
How do you feel about like how violent it was in the beginning? I mean, now I haven't heard of looting at all in the past week regarding the protesting. It's all been very, very peaceful. And in fact, I would go as far to say that like people who are anti-Black Lives Matter have made it violent. And I say that from a firsthand, like I have seen that firsthand. So how do you feel about that? Because you are a person of color and I am not. I can only say so much.
I think I started off not in your boat, where I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why are these people looting? And while I still think that looting is pretty ridiculous and you're essentially a criminal when you're just looting, I think that there's a point where you have to say, what do you expect people to do? Like, what do you expect people to do other than protest? Like, it's given the history, it's not absurd that people are burning down buildings. It's not absurd that, people are doing this. People in the KKK used to burn down Black churches all the time. I mean, it's like, people are unhappy. This is crazy that Black people are just being killed by police officers. This is crazy that I'm getting stopped in my apartment complex and getting harassed and interrogated to see if I'm a resident or not. I mean, this is ridiculous. So what do you expect people to do? I mean, it just is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Going off of that, I feel like I have gotten pretty heated. And I think when I get like emotional being like I get frustrated and I get like heated on these situations, I think I can come from a point that's not really like illogical and I'm not speaking from my heart. And at the end of the day, like this topic means so much to me. And like, does me dating a person of color have to do with that? Absolutely. But like, I that doesn't matter to me. Like, I am sitting here and I am really bothered by what's going on in our world. And if the least I can do is make a podcast or put up one Instagram post or like make a tweet and somebody sees it and like second thinks, what's another word for that? Rethinks. Jesus.
Second thing.
If my post makes somebody rethink the way their mind is working, then
it's a win.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, like I will stand with Black Lives Matter no matter what. Like I want to be an ally because
Ally the ally.
I'm not the group that is oppressed, and I am white and I have white privilege. And like I don't think we really have talked about that in this podcast. And like in the future, we totally will talk about white privilege. But I have white privilege, and if I can use my white privilege for anything, it's going to be to speak up about a very important topic. And I just want to be that ally, and I just wanted to use this platform to talk about this because it's so important.
I agree. And I'm thankful. I mean, I've had more healthy conversations with people like Allie and my friend group than I've had in my entire life. And I mean, that's what's so amazing about it. It's just it's that time where this causes everybody to have a conversation. And like I said, it makes everybody stop and think about what's going on and have a conversation. And I think that's just the first step. I mean, I like we kind of cheat. It's corny, but it's more than a protest, more than the conversations, more than all these things. It's about action. But I think we're in the right direction.
Isaac and I actually are part of a company called Local Human, and I'm not doing this to like advertise to make money. Like we literally make $0. $0.
Zero. Boys will be putting in hella time.
But we are donating 100% of proceeds from the sale of this t-shirt. I'm going to leave it in the show notes if you're watching it on the podcast, and in the description if you're watching it on YouTube. But we are selling a t-shirt, and we have a GoFundMe page. And Isaac and I and a bunch of our friends and some of Isaac's teammates are all going out to a protest this Sunday. You guys are watching this on Wednesday, and we are going to the protest on this Sunday to be part of a Black Lives Matter protest. And that is going to be in Los Angeles. So if you guys are in LA or the surrounding LA cities, you guys should totally come down. We would love to meet you. We would love to protest with you and bring awareness to such an important discussion. And if you are not local, you can buy a t-shirt, you can donate. And again, every single penny is not going towards us. It's not going towards a company. It's literally all going to Black owned or like Black funds. Like
it's going to Campaign Zero, United Negro College Fund, and the Fair Housing
Alliance.
It's Fair Housing Alliance. It might be called something else, but it has to do with fair housing and dealing with redlining and gerrymandering that basically isolates Black communities, and they have worse schools and worse areas because of that. So, I mean, what we always like to say is donating doesn't have to be difficult. You can literally buy a shirt and you're taking action.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, like literally the reason I brought that up is because the phrase Isaac just said, want to repeat it?
Donating doesn't have to be difficult.
No, not that phrase. The phrase is on the shirt.
Oh, it's more than a protest, more than a trend, more than a movement.
That is on a t-shirt. So you guys can either go and buy a t-shirt, or you guys can go and donate to the GoFundMe page. And the GoFundMe page, actually, we're raising money, honestly, to like pass out waters and food to protesters so they're not dehydrated. So we're staying like safe and healthy while people are protesting. So if you guys want to get involved, feel free to give me a DM or donate. Doesn't matter. I mean, it's not going towards us. We're just like here advocating for Black Lives Matter. So
thank you for tuning in.
Honestly, I did not expect to let this conversation go on for so long. And this is just going to be part 1 of this podcast. And there's going to be a part 2 because initially we started this conversation. Basically, I wanted to address a bunch of questions people had for me and Isaac being different races and being in a relationship.
Like that was legit going to be this podcast.
Like literally that was going to be this podcast. And then we just like got off into a tangent. And I honestly think it was a super healthy discussion. And you guys were able to see our discussion. So I have no regrets. But there is going to be a part 2 of this podcast. And we are going to be answering your questions that you guys wrote into us regarding the current situation of our world, regarding Black Lives Matter and the discussion. And you guys had like some uncomfortable questions that you never wanted to ask somebody, and you guys were able to do that. So it's really important for us to answer those, but that is going to be in the next podcast. So I'm actually going to be posting the next podcast on Sunday, which is going to be the day we're going to be protesting. But just to like keep the Black Lives Matter discussion alive and just to be advocating. So we're going to be posting that on Sunday, which is not typically our podcast day, but I do want to just like give you guys all this information as soon as possible because I know it's very important right now.
Yep.
Well, it's not very important right now. It's always important.
And we just appreciate you guys tuning in.
Yeah. So thanks so much for watching or listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube. We don't make any money off this podcast, or else I totally would donate it. So if we happen to make any dime off this podcast, well, actually we do off YouTube. So I will be donating all of the YouTube money, whatever I make off this video.
One?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's new.
I mean, I'll just be donating it.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal because it's a very important cause and I want to donate. So I'm going to be donating every single cent that this video or podcast makes to the Black Lives Matter community and to raising awareness. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you in part 2 of this podcast.
Thank you.